Tonight I want to give you an exclusive insight into the targeting and intimidation of Jewish Australians since the October the 7th atrocities by Hamas against Israel. This appears to be an organised and vicious targeting of professional Jewish Australians, and it relates to the doxing issue we discussed yesterday. First, let's recap that, where lists of Jewish Australians, particularly those working in creative industries, have been circulated among pro-Palestinian people and groups. This information contains names, workplaces, social media profiles, photos, and personal details that can be used to harass and intimidate Jewish people. Jewish Liberal MP Julian Lisa called out this disgraceful tactic and demanded action on this program last night.
And that's why I'm joining the Executive Council of Australian Jewry and others in calling for a tougher response to ensure that in the future, anybody that engages in this terrible, intimidatory doxing behaviour will feel the full force of the law.
And it seems the Albanese Labor government has been pressured to finally do something on at least this one aspect of the anti-Semitism we're seeing in this country right now.
No Australian should be targeted because of their race or because of their religion. The Albanese government committed last year to stronger protections for Australians through reforms to the Privacy Act. The Prime Minister has asked me to bring forward, as part of that set of reforms to the Privacy Act, some new provisions to deal with this practice of doxing.
We'll see where all that lands, but let's hope it's effective. So now back to these new revelations about another campaign targeting Jewish Australians by using complaints mechanisms through government agencies or professional organisations. David Adler is the president of the Australian Jewish Association, and he's a registered medical doctor and former deputy secretary of the Australian Medical Association. You will have seen him on Sky News here and elsewhere over the years. And in the 35 years he's been a registered medical practitioner, he's never had a complaint upheld against him. Only one was filed in that time and it wasn't upheld. Yet since the October the 7th terrorist attack, there have been at least 10 complaints about Dr Adler to the Healthcare Complaints Authority. In fact, those 10 complaints came in December alone, and they relate specifically to his role in the Jewish community. Most of the complaints contain these words or similar, noting that Adler is president of the Australian Jewish Association and claiming he's been using his platform to spread hatred against innocent people who are based in Australia and Palestine. They claim this breaches the Medical Code of Conduct and amounts to engaging in unprofessional behaviour. They even add that his behaviour is unacceptable and extremely dangerous to our community. The complaints link is a variety of They actually link to a variety of social media posts by Dr Adler and the AJA about the atrocities committed against Israelis and about the hostages and the resultant Israel-Hamas war. The similarity in their wording of these complaints suggests a coordinated campaign. And while some of the complaints merely call for an investigation, others demand that he be struck off the register as a doctor, or that medical authorities take action against Dr Adler and revoke his licence to practice. This is clearly a deliberate targeting of a leading Jewish Australian seeking to undercut his professional status. Some of the complaints are anonymous, while others use their names. With complaints like this, sometimes the process of defending yourself can be the punishment, but thankfully this time Adler has been spared that, with the Healthcare Complaints Commission writing to him saying it's assessed the complaints about his comments on the Middle East conflict, and in consultation with the Medical Council of New South Wales, it has decided to take no further action. It did add, however, that he might want to consider these complaints as valuable feedback. Well, it is feedback, but just how valuable it is, I'm not sure. What is clear is that people are trying to do David Adler some professional harm because he is a Jewish Australian who's publicly defending the rights of Jewish people and Israel. Dr David Adler joins me at the desk right now. Thanks for joining us, David.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you for that summary.
How disturbing is it to have this attack on your professional credentials?
Well, For me personally, I'm reasonably bulletproof to these sort of attacks. But what we see here is symptomatic of the broader problem, which is to identify Jewish people and try to harass them and attack them in Australia. And I think we need to give some thought to the fact that they are exploiting government facilities, they're exploiting government processes in this example without consequence. And maybe there needs to be thought given to some consequences. Maybe there needs to be a fee in order to lodge such a campaign, or if you do it without merit and it's frivolous, just like other legal process, you should be responsible for the costs incurred.
Yeah, good point, because it's a free hit here at the moment. You jump online, send in a complaint, and that automatically triggers a process, which in this case you've been spared. But in other cases, people have to engage lawyers and get into a detailed response, lest they do lose their status.
Well, there's a term for it. It's called lawfare.
Yeah.
And it is being used by the haters. And I suspect that the allegations that came against me are from people who may be supporters of Hamas, and they simply disliked or disagreed with the comments that I was making in support of the Jewish community in Israel. And let me make it quite clear, I propose to continue making those comments. I propose to continue doing my best to defend the Jewish community and Israel. And I have written to the Healthcare Complaints Commission, firstly commending them on dismissing the batch of 10 complaints, but secondly, to put them on notice there will likely be more.
Indeed. Now, it's not going to silence you, this lawfare, but are you aware of other Jewish Australians in professional organisations who are getting this sort of targeting?
Well, we know that recently there was a group of roughly 600 Jewish people involved in the entertainment industry, in journalism, in the arts, otherwise known as creative. Yep. And some of them have unfortunately suffered significant damage to their businesses, to their professional interests, etc. This is outrageous. This is un-Australian. The Jewish community, as many people would be aware, has made an extraordinary contribution to Australian life, began with the First Fleet, and be it business, the professions, arts, philanthropy, have been big contributors, lower than average dependency on welfare, and across the world indeed, Jewish communities have tended to add value to society rather than to be detractors.
Yeah, and this is another aspect of the rising tide of anti-Semitism we're seeing. Thanks so much for going public, David, and sharing your experience with us.
Thank you for the opportunity to do so.